Our next speaker is Dr. Joni Carley. She's a leadership and cultural consultant with a doctorate in the reinvention of work. Her new book, The Alchemy of Power, connects the dots between ageless wisdom and what's on leaders' minds and on their desktops. Warm round of applause for Dr. Joni Carley.
Hi, how's your mojo? I guess we first have to ask, what's your mojo, right? So what does that mean to you? What's the word mojo mean to you?
Vitality.
Vitality.
Excitement.
Spunk, excitement.
Energy.
Energy, oxygen, yeah.
Juice.
What was that?
Juice,
yeah, zip, zing, pizzazz, that kind of thing. The Taoists call it qi, the Hindus call it shakti, and you can think of it like an inner power. It's a life force that fuels our vitality. You can also think of it like a metaphysical spark. I think of mojo like a primal pulse that's unique in each of us, but common to all of us. And the way I really like to explain it is that you can put all the elements of a carrot into a lab dish, but we can't make a carrot because we don't have the metaphysical capacity to do that. So mojo is a metaphysical energy that infuses everything from the life of a carrot to the power of a leader. It has everything to do with how things go, and it has everything to do with what causes what. I traveled the world learning about mojo. I've been with religious leaders, spiritual teachers, been with indigenous elders, leadership and human potential experts, and I've had the privilege of working with amazing leaders as a consultant and advisor. But I learned the most about mojo when I went into the Amazon jungle and stayed with the Shuar tribe. They're known for their fierce warriors and for their headhunters, which they say headhunting is no longer done or not often done, which depends on who you ask. So being in the jungle gives you this primal experience of this life throb or this metaphysical spark that I'm calling mojo. I was climbing up 15, 20-foot cliffs and walking along these really narrow edges, and if you grab the wrong branch, you get fire ants down your arm. Going to the bathroom involved scorpions. And we crossed the Amazon in whitewater on a rope, hand over hand. I almost lost my life. But that kind of immediacy really brings you present to every moment. And that kind of presence is a major component of mojo. You just feel it. When somebody's really present with you, there's an energy that you both feel. So the Shuar are especially attuned to that energy. They just know that primal pulses in their life. There's not much material goods, there's not much else around, so they're just super connected to it. They're really strong and they're really highly capable people. And they're highly ethical. There's no stealing, there's no lying, and there's no gratuitous violence. Now we would think, headhunting, like that's pretty barbaric, right? But they looked at us and they said, well, we used to take the head of a leader or two. You bomb whole villages and kids die. They wouldn't even hurt a plant. So they thought we were incredibly barbaric compared to them. And that ethical worldview fed into their mojo. Right? They had more energy because they had that strong ethical base. And they had really strong values for family. They spent a lot of time just hanging out with family. And joy was so important to them. And that is a major mojo factor. Just find joy and you got some mojo going. They also had really strong values for just life in general, and especially for their spiritual lives. I've been with indigenous people all over the place, and they all have that sense of being interdependent with everyone and everything else. As Martin Luther King said, we're all woven into a single garment of destiny. And getting in touch with that interconnectedness with each other and with the planet, that's a mojo stoker. It really moves you. So I want to talk about mojo in the workplace because that's the subject of my book, The Alchemy of Power. You can take two leaders and give them equivalent resources. Same material resources, people resources, same amount of time. One produces really shoddy deliverables and barely breaks even. The other produces excellence, innovation, and really great profits. So what's the difference? The difference isn't physical, it's metaphysical. The difference was in how the mojo flowed. Mojo is the ultimate source of success. And mojo flows the way that values go. Values are our most primal drivers They motivate us more than anything else, according to twin studies, even more than our genetics. And there's tons of other studies that back up the primacy of values in our lives. So when positive values are playing out, like respect, caring, truthfulness, Mojo flows really well. But when negative values are playing out, like politics and gossip and power trips and all of that kind of stuff, then Mojo goes retro. And my consulting work takes me to the United Nations a lot. And there's no question that there is absolutely a global call for a more values-driven world. And that's reflected in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And these are a 17-item to-do list that the entire world agreed to. It was unanimous, which is rare. They don't even agree the sky's blue. But they all came to agreement on the 17 items. And it's pretty much the things you'd suspect. It's, clean air, no poverty, no hunger, gender equity, justice, those kinds of things. And what has become really clear to me working on both sides with people in the workplace and at the United Nations is that the best way to create a better world is to create a better workplace, and vice versa. The best way to create a better workplace is to start working toward the greatest good. And the Sustainable Development Goals are a great place to start. If your organization is not working toward the world's agenda, there's a really good chance you're going to be left behind. And the data's in on this. You can do well and do good. In fact, when values rule, just about every economic and social indicator goes up. That's because Mojo flows where values go. Pretty simple. We think of values as like the fluffy stuff, this metaphysical is like the fluffy stuff. But it's not true. They are the most fundamental drivers of behavior and results. And we're experiencing a global call for a values-driven transformation. Leaders risk being blindsided by their own irrelevance if they're not accounting for values. That's true personally and it's true organizationally. Researchers have demonstrated that the person who has done the most personal development of their own values has the most authority of everyone in the room, regardless of their rank. So that means that the janitor, if that person has more integrity with their own values and is growing in their own values evolution, they have more authority than the CEO. The CEO might have a kind of power to dictate things, but who's going to really be followed and listened to is going to be the janitor in that situation. That's been proven clearly. Organizationally, the same thing. Research is very, very substantive that groups do better when values are consciously managed. So we've all been told that we shouldn't worry about values. We should put that after the financial benchmarks are met. That is absolute fallacy. There's absolutely no data that backs that up anywhere. It's a complete myth. The truth is that financial goals are better met when leaders pay attention not just to their profitability, but to well-being, to relationships, to good citizenship, and to the greatest good. So where does all this sit? Where do you locate things like values and mojo and power and greatest good? It sits in the field of metaphysics. And metaphysics is the science and the philosophy, it's a double field of science and philosophy, of causality. It's the study of what causes what. And scientists agree that we only know about 5% of our reality. 95% is dark matter, dark energy, and something else we haven't even named yet. But metaphysics is in the domain of that 95%. And that doesn't mean we should ignore it just because we don't fully understand it. There's a lot of value there. Overlooking the 95% of our reality puts leaders at a huge disadvantage. We have a culture that's really afraid of talking about this stuff. It's afraid of metaphysics. It dismisses it as airy-fairy or fluffy or unimportant or inconsequential, all that kind of conversation. But we ignore 95% of our reality at our own peril. Because metaphysical factors like mojo are the ultimate source of power in the workplace. And culture has everything to do with how mojo flows. Just like the culture in a lab dish can grow some things and can't grow others, toxic cultures where negative values are playing out are really deadly for mojo. And positive values-driven cultures stoke mojo. And the best place to start with cultural development is take a good look at your own values. So I'd like to take you through a little process to do that. The process is LOVE. Look, own, value, evolve. And I'll just give you a little example of how that works for me. So I think what I want to look at is an issue. And one of the issues that drives me is too many kids go to bed unsafe, unfed, and cold. And so how do I own that? Well, I came from a pretty privileged life. My kids never went to bed that way, and neither did I. And so I feel driven to make a difference. I feel that gives me a responsibility, so that's how I own it. And what are the values that triggers for me? Compassion. Justice. I want the justice where all kids go to bed safe, fed, and warm. And how do I evolve that? Well, one of the things I do at the UN is I vice chair the Coalition for Global Citizenship. And so I go there and I think, well, I could step up my game around that. I can do more writing, I can do more speaking, I chair the Policy and Advocacy Committee of that, and so I can do more advocacy work. And there are other ways to evolve things. You can write a letter, you can say a prayer. You can tell the story differently. Story's so powerful. Just tell a different story. And even if you just stay quiet and don't proliferate a story, that's evolution. And so I would want to take you through your own right now. So settle in, take a really deep breath. And look at something that concerns you at work, in the world. Choose some issue. And own it. Why does it matter in your life? How does it touch your world? And what values does that get at? What values does it expose? What's underneath that makes you care about this? How might you evolve it? How might you make change? So come back into the room and let me know, what would you like to evolve? Just call out what are some of the things you'd like to have happen?
Empowerment.
Change poverty?
Empowerment for all.
Empowerment for all, yeah.
Better relationships.
Better relationships.
Changing the negative.
Changing the negative, yeah. Kindness, amen, yeah.
Equality.
Yeah. So feel the mojo when we start caring and seeing how we're connected to everything. Mojo matters. And paying attention to it is a really powerful way to attend to everything else in your life. Because we are the hearts, we are the minds, we are the hands, we are the feet, and we are the souls that must and can create the work that we love and the world that we really want to live in. So I'm going to leave you with a question that we started with, because if you ask yourself this every day, you're going to be planting seeds to create the world that you really want. How's your mojo?
Great.
We're living in a world right now where we're at each other's throats and we're killing each other, and Joni's message is really important because we need to really bring it back to taking care of and looking out and watching out for each other versus us being at each other's throats all the time, and bring back a sense of community versus a sense of individuality, because we've really lost that. And the world right now, it just seems everybody's a little crazy. So let's just bring it back to what Joni says, because it's important. The way we interact, the way we treat each other, the way we talk to each other, just the most basic elements every day. So Joni's message is important. It's had an impact on me because it's taken the way I think and shifted me and said, Adam, think outside the box. Think a little differently than you have been thinking.
Joni's speech was so moving to me because it gave me hope that we can bring concepts like metaphysics and mojo into organizational culture and into mainstream in a way that everyone can learn about this part of life that not very many people pay attention to at this point. So I think Joni is such a trailblazer. I also think that there's so much more that she has to offer, and I can't wait to hear more.
I didn't know what metaphysics was, and I was enlightened by it. But the real message here was the mojo. In this day and age, this is what we all need to hear. It sparked me, and I know it'll spark others to find our mojo and connect to others to spark theirs. Great job.